Breakfast, lunch, dinner. These are the meals we eat every day. But how many of us really know what's in our food, or how it is grown locally or internationally? What are the scientific techniques being applied to food production? One such technique is genetic engineering to produce genetically modified foods. But what really is genetically modified or GM foods? How do they affect us? These are some of the questions we will try to answer in this second episode of NIHERST series on biotechnology. Genetic modification involves moving genetic material from the cells of one organism to another. GM foods are produced from plants and animals whose genetic makeup have been altered by scientists in a lab. But why make GM foods? What advantages does it hold over conventional methods of food production?
The benefits which have accrued involves the higher yields, lower pesticide usage, more nutritious foods, as we just heard, improving things like amino acids, protein, vitamins.
There are already a soybean oil that has a modified fatty acid composition that has the oil composition has been modified in such a way that it has a low degree of saturation, is one of the products that is already on the market but in a very limited manner. But there are many exciting changes that have been happening in our food that would bring much greater health benefit to the consumers and also to the environment.
Already, genetically modified crops are planted in over 40 million hectares of land worldwide and sold in 6 continents. The majority of these GM crops are grown in the United States, Canada, Argentina, and China. Different countries hold varying positions on the production and the consumption of GM foods. While the United States accounts for 2/3 of the total GM crops produced worldwide, no GM foods are produced in the United Kingdom, though they are available for sale. In the US, labeling of foods containing GM ingredients is not mandatory. However, in the UK and the rest of the European Union, food containing more than 1% of GM products must be labeled so that consumers are given a choice when it comes to consuming GM foods. That figure is expected to drop to 0.9% in the future. If you visited countries that allow the sale of GM foods, then it's very likely you have eaten GM foods or foods containing genetically modified ingredients. GM foods have been on the market in the US for close to a decade. In Trinidad, if you have consumed soya or corn, it is very likely that they are genetically modified products, since we import these foods from the United States. So, is it dangerous to eat GM foods?
This is what head of the Cancer Research Campaign in the UK says about this. We don't know what genetic abnormalities might be incorporated into the genome. Regarding GM foods, I am more worried about humans than the environment, to be honest. One of the problems is that because it is a long-term thing, you need to do long-term experiments.
Scientists agree that they do not know if there are any long-term effects of eating GM foods, since it is practically impossible to carry out long-term clinical tests of any food. They also do not know whether GM foods cause allergies in people. However, what scientists do know is that GM foods on the market are unlikely to be toxic and are probably as nutritious as conventional foods and no more harmful. In fact, GM foods undergo rigorous testing before being put on the market, whereas no testing is done on foods grown by traditional methods. Modified DNA from GM food is unlikely to transfer to bacteria in our stomachs. Scientists agree that such a thing would be extremely rare, since there is no evidence that such gene transfer has ever taken place. Increased crop yields, disease-resistant plants, food security. These are some of the possibilities that genetic engineering holds, And while it is only natural for us to be concerned about this technology, we should not allow these concerns to prevent us from learning more about the food we eat and how it is grown.